I think the biggest thing that Donald Trump has meant for Mexico this year has been uncertainty and fear. There's a lot of things hanging over the relations between the two countries. The most important one is the renegotiation of NAFTA, the free trade agreement. Donald Trump has called it the worst trade agreement in history and has threatened to cancel it. And that has prompted Mexico to look elsewhere for trading partners. One of the main consequences of the year has been Mexico's realized that the United States might not be such a reliable partner. The other big issue between these two countries is immigration. Trump has repeatedly called for the border wall and said Mexico will pay for it, which has been a source of tension between the two countries. Having Trump in office and his rhetoric about deporting illegal immigrants has slowed down the flow of migrants from Central America. And recently, Trump has ended these temporary protected status programs for El Salvador, Haiti, and other countries, which had allowed people to have work permits and live in the U.S. For many years. And so Mexico and Central America are dealing with the prospect of how to incorporate these people back into their countries, and also the loss of the flow of remittances of money sent by immigrants in the U.S. back home, which is a big part of the economy.
It's been a wild year in U.S.-China relations. On day 3, President Trump withdrew from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a trade deal that took 10 years to negotiate. That withdrawal, combined with the decision to ditch the Paris Climate Change Accord, really shocked the diplomatic community. So much so that the acting U.S. ambassador to China resigned in protest. Both decisions really left the world and U.S. allies in Asia wondering whether America First was going to be America on its own. Into that void steps Chinese President Xi Jinping, 5 years into his tenure, powerful and eager to show it. Trump's isolationist foreign policy and his erratic comments on Twitter really made Xi look pretty good this year. He got to be the global leader, and that's something that U.S. allies in Asia and around the world have noticed.
When Donald Trump was inaugurated in January 2017, there was a lot of fear here in the European Union that he was going to support far-right populists who were trying to break up the European Union. They were worried that he was going to pull out of the NATO security alliance and cut a deal with Russia. A year later, a lot of those fears have calmed significantly, but there are still a lot of fears that Trump is a disruptor who isn't interested in old alliances. And even inside NATO, where it turns out that a lot of the Trump policies have been continuous, there are concerns that the personality of the president and what a lot of people here see as impulsive behaviors really could be problems. Europeans also feel Trump's attacks on the mainstream media, his labeling of them as fake news, and his desire for more unfettered control over the Justice Department, over investigations into his campaign about collusion with Russia, undermines the Europeans' attempts to promote democracy and liberal values around the world.
Trump's first year in office has certainly had an impact. His most high-profile and contentious decision was to recognize this city, holy to Christians, Muslims, and Jews, as the capital of Israel. For Israelis, that was widely welcome. They see the city as their eternal and undivided capital. But with Palestinians, it was met with anger and was seen as a denial of their rights to the eastern half of this city. Trump's administration has also forged closer relationships with settler groups and the Israeli right, who say they want to take advantage of this window of opportunity for Israel. This has all been a stumbling block for the peace process. Palestinians have walked away, saying the US can no longer be seen as an honest broker in the process, and we're left wondering whether Trump can achieve his ultimate deal, peace between Israelis and Palestinians.
I think it's fair to say that both the Russian government and Russians themselves aren't that excited, that happy with what they've seen. A lot of the détente and also the sense of warming that was promised between Russia and the United States hasn't really come to pass yet. I don't think that many of them are necessarily blaming Trump himself. The thing that you hear the most when you talk to members of the Russian government, other members of the elite, or in the establishment representing an official view, is that the United States is broken. That the sort of infighting in politics has made it impossible for the United States to really act capably as the United States really retreats from some of its obligations. Russia sees an opportunity to gain influence in places like the Middle East, where the intervention in Syria is ongoing, in Asia, in places like China, as well as in Eastern Europe. The second question that we're looking a lot at is just how badly relations have gotten between Russia and the United States. We've really seen a lot of the framework that was built up since the end of the Cold War completely collapse. The fact that those relations have sunk so low, it does on the one hand show how deep the crisis has gotten. On the other hand, it also raises another question, which is, was there ever that strong of a framework in the first place?
Here in South Korea, there was a lot of anxiety about President Trump's inauguration, partly because of his rhetoric on the campaign trail when he was talking about making South Korea pay more for American military bases and was talking about ripping up the free trade deal between the two countries, but exacerbated by the fact that South Korea was going through this period of turmoil when he took office. Those fears have only been exacerbated since President Trump started talking about military strikes on North Korea to rein in Kim Jong-un. He's talked about totally destroying North Korea. He's called Kim Jong-un, little rocket man. But there's a new sense of concern here about President Trump that he is the wild card in this equation, because Donald Trump is seen as impulsive and maybe not fully aware of the impact that it would have on South Korea if there was a military confrontation with the North. Ironically, Kim Jong-un has won the South Korean government something of a reprieve. Last year, President Trump was talking about immediately ripping up the free trade agreement with South Korea, and then that very weekend, North Korea conducted a huge nuclear test and really underscored the need for a close relationship with this ally here.